Good morning, Rev Walter here, and today is the 26th of August. I always call out that date because it's just a way of us remembering that days are really going by, and if we don't do much in terms of being deliberate about each day that comes, then we will miss that day. You know, there's a reason the day is a gift, and hence why it's called the present. The reason it's the present is because that's what it is. You do realize that the future is a promissory note, and the past is a spent check. Okay, now we're at a time where checks are no longer being used. So maybe, that analogy may not make sense to many people. But just realize that a check is a document you're given, which is representation of money from a different person, and you can go cash it. That's what a check is. And then a promissory note is like a note, like the money, like the cash we have in our hands. I promise to pay the bearer on demand the amount shown there, for settling of all public debts, so of all debts, public and private. That's what the note says. Now, the note is a promissory note, my friends. This note, in fact, let me just get into that a bit before we go into intelligence. This note is a promissory note. This note is only as powerful as the place it exists. So if it does not exist in its domicile, this note is completely useless. In fact, when you think about it, all notes are useless when all is said and done. They're only as useful as the domicile where they operate from. In other words, their usefulness is determined by their capacity to be cashed. And so in many ways, you and I are like that. We are only as good as where we are and what we do where we are. So if we are not in our domicile, in our place of domain, we are useless, like that note. Let me prove it to you. You take our kwacha and go into South Africa and see if you can use it to buy anything. It's completely useless. So the kwacha only makes sense where? In Zambia, because it's legal tender here. And in South Africa, even if you try to change that note, you will struggle because South Africa is not like Zambia. So we don't really have places in South Africa where you can take your kwacha and go and change it at the Bureau de Change, unless you go to Zambian businesses where they operate as Zambians, but you're not going to get the right rate. You see, that's the catch. You're not going to get the right rate. You are going to be, pardon the language, fiengwad. To be fiengwad means you'll be exploited. That's the translation. You will be exploited and you will not get its true value because you're not in the domicile. And that's why we come every day on these platforms to try and get you guys to realize that unless you're in your domicile, unless you're in your place of operation, unless you're in a place of purpose, your capacity will never be fully exploited. Your environment will keep you down. And so you must get into the right environment, you must get into the right setting, and then you will see yourself prosper. And so today, I am dealing with another very exciting topic. But before so, I want you guys to know, those of you who are not able to afford, we run these things every day, this 730 Mentorship Academy platform. We run this every day for those who can't afford, for those who won't do it, but they like the free stuff. We're here because this is our way of giving back to the community. So every day we come, and there's 3 very profound trainers that come here with serious credentials. So on Mondays is yours truly with this platform. On Tuesdays, I have Dr. Sunshine Sylvia, who, by the way, I must congratulate publicly with her husband for celebrating another amazing anniversary with her dear husband. And her husband is our 5th member. So he never, he comes and speaks from time to time, but he's our 5th member. Great supporter, Dr. Stephen Wansa. And so the 2 of them were celebrating their anniversary yesterday. Amazing. If I get it right, I think it was a 40th anniversary or 39th anniversary, but some really crazy figure. Is it 30th anniversary? I'm not sure, so Auntie Sylvia will correct me. But it was amazing either way because these guys have been around. They now have children. They have grandchildren, I think 11. And the latest one popped up just the other day. And so it's really, really amazing to see that legacy being created by Sunshine Sylvia and her husband. And for me, they are an inspiration. There are a number of couples who inspire me. The Mwansas, those Mwansas inspire me, the ones that Auntie Sylvia is here. Then there's another Mwansas, 2 Mwansas that inspire us, which is a great man called Uncle Martin Mwansa, also nicknamed King Martin. He is 39th anniversary. Thank you, Auntie Sylvia. 39th anniversary. So Martin Mwansa and his wife Victoria Mwansa, we call them King Martin and Auntie Vicky. Very inspirational. Those people have been such pillars in our lives, in our marriage. And then the third couple that inspires me immensely is Dr. Nelly and Bishop Jacobs. Did I just call them Mwansa? Almost. Jacobs Kangwa. Yeah, this is the third couple that really inspires us. And you know what? Those are the kinds of people you want to keep in front of you. Now, I'm talking about not people, what it's not people we watch from far. No, these are people we have relationships with. Because you cannot be inspired by people from far. You've got to be inspired by people that you know the inside out of. People you have lived with, people you have interacted with, people you've been able to fellowship with, because then you really get to see how they interact between themselves. And they inspire me so much to aim for that level of fellowship. Hey, Uncle Steve has just spoken. Yes, thanks for Rev for the conferment as 5th member of the powerful team. I hope to play my part in everyone's benefit. You are already doing so, Uncle Mwansa. You always come on from time to time, and you've always been there helping Auntie Sylvia. We are inspired, some of us. That's why we do what we do, so that we can be able to walk in your giant steps. And so, how come they come from the same province? That's true, my sister Shupi. You wonder, Kangwa and two Mwansas. And the irony is why Mwansa specifically. But in our lives, we have a whole bunch of very, very dear friends who are Mwansas. There's another friend of mine called Dr. Kenny Mwansa and his wife, Jacqueline. They're also Mwansas. And that Jacqueline Mwansa, I always used to get it messed up because the Mwansas, as in Uncle Steve and his wife, have a daughter in love called Jacqueline Mwansa. She's the wife to Steve, to Flex, And so Flex's wife is Jacqueline, and Dr. Kenny Mwansa's wife is Jacqueline. So I would always get these names wrong. You're trying to call Jacqueline Mwansa Kenny, you end up finding you're talking to Jacqueline Mwansa Flex. So, and vice versa. So there you are. So a shortage of names, I don't know what it is with the Mwansa people, but they seem to have a very big impact in my life. That Mwansa name and wherever that clan is from is definitely a powerful clan. So nonetheless, on Wednesday is open market. And that's when we open it up for any one of you guys who wants to pay and come and be on it. So we do have several people coming in from time to time. In fact, we have some clients in the pipeline, and these clients are coming through very soon. You'll start to see some of their features here. And that's specifically ZRA and a number. I have some very good clients who have been expressing interest. They just haven't gotten around their procurement process, but they're a very good platform themselves. And it's not just them. There's also another 2-3 clients at that level who would like to come on this platform. And then on Thursdays, we have Dr. Nelly Kangwa, powerful woman. And so she does her thing, and she comes through with prosperity for your soul. Right now, Dr. Nelly, what she used to tell us 1 year ago is now happening. She said, you better take advantage of me now, because the time is coming when you won't be able to see me because I'll be so busy. So she is so busy now, launching in all these various places. We are so proud of her as members of this platform. We cheer her on in the biggest way you can imagine. We love her. We love Bishop Jacobs Mwansa, and we are grateful for what God is doing through them. And Dr. Nelly is really at a whole other level right now. So she comes on Thursdays with Prosperity for Your Soul. And then on Friday, we have Dr. Jacqueline Mwansa's Healthy Tips. Sorry, Mulundika. Jacqueline Mulundika. You see what I meant? So Jacqueline Mulundika with her Healthy Tips on Fridays, but she hasn't been on the platform. So she's been ably represented by another elder I hold in very high esteem, Dr. John Mubanga, who is an expert in health, wellness, and generally naturopathy and homeopathy. So he's really, really good in that. And he always comes with very powerful presentations. We hope to see him this Friday again as he does another amazing presentation. Now, today I want to pick it up and talk about intelligences. Now, did you know that we have different types of intelligence? Let me sip my coffee. And by the way, my coffee is then followed by my tea. So I do that every morning. Now, not only are they incredibly different in terms of these types of intelligences, they all are also expressed according to which hemisphere of the brain one is dominant. So here comes a bit of science. Now, do you see this blue book behind me, this one? It's called Making the Most of Your Brain. This is one of the most powerful books that I have had to study in line with my field of neurology. So neuropsychology rather. Yeah, neuropsychology, it's that thick. It's a very, very powerful book. So this book is part of what I've been studying in understanding, you know, all these aspects of what I teach. Huh? So for example, you see the chapter on the placebo effect. But I teach from this, and it's a very, very, very powerful book. So, but I also went through a course in neuropsychology. So I really, really, you know, I can confidently stand and say I know what I'm talking about. Now, anyway, so one of the greatest setbacks as a country, which country? Zambia, I'll be very specific. When it comes to education, is that our aptitude is determined using methods that favor people who are predominantly left-brained, okay, as opposed to right-brained. So what does that mean? What does that mean in real English? I'll explain just now, okay? It is an indisputable fact that the brain and which hemisphere is dominant determine the natural inclination of the subject when it comes to their ability to excel in any given discipline. Okay, the left hemisphere of the brain is typically associated with language, logic, and analytical thinking. The brain is amazing, you know, because the way it's divided, it's got the left brain and the right brain, but at the same time, you've got the prefrontal cortex, which is your thinking brain, and the limbic brain, which is your subconscious mind, subconscious brain. So thinking, conscious, subconscious, emotional, and your emotions sit in your subconscious mind. Amazing, with a whole bunch of things, but yet it's also left and right, left brain, right brain. And the left brain and right brain seem to deal with different aspects of what we call cognitive operations. So I'm going into that now. Okay, so I've already told you that it controls the right side of the body. So here's the interesting part. So the left brain controls the right side of the body, the right brain, the left side of the body. And you know, and here's the thing, and receives sensory information from the right side as well. So some of these specific functions associated with the left hemisphere of the brain include language processing, including understanding and producing speech, reading, and writing. That's why when people have the left side brain stroke, in other words, if they are paralyzed on the right side of their body, usually they can't speak well. Now you know. Okay, it is also referred to as the logical side of the brain. Interesting. And this is responsible for analytical thinking, reasoning, and problem solving. It also handles processing and analyzing numerical and scientific information, as well as being suited for processing information in a sequential and orderly manner, such as following a set of instructions or steps. So the left side of the brain is very, very powerful thing. So you find that very interesting. Okay, now realizing it, that while the left hemisphere tends to be more dominant in language and analytical thinking, the right hemisphere of the brain also plays an important role in cognition, creativity, and emotional processing. So they kind of interweave in a way. So the two hemispheres work together in a complex way to enable us to perceive and interact with the world around us. Okay, now the right hemisphere of the brain is associated with, listen to this, creativity, intuition, emotions, and spatial awareness. Now, spatial awareness is very interesting. Now, it controls the left side of the body, so right side of the brain, left side of the body. Very interesting. And receives sensory information from that side as well. Okay, and this includes creativity, and as such, this hemisphere is often referred to as the creative side of the brain, and it is involved in creative thinking, imagination, and artistic ability. So our ability oh, nice to see you here, my elder Maponga. Good to see you, sir. Very good to see you. Actually, I appreciate that. And I think we're together on the 8th, unless these guys have changed the program. So just give Elder Maponga some love there, for as long as he's on the call. Now continuing, these include creativity, like I said. So since it's the creative side and the artistic side comes from there, it is why that side of the brain is the one that's able to appreciate art. So if you get paralyzed on that side, your capacity to appreciate art and abstract thinking is not there, even though you'll be able to speak. A very interesting phenomenon. Now, it's also responsible for the processing visual and spatial information, such as recognizing faces. That's why when people get strokes of the left side, they fail to recognize people because of this factor, right? So it can recognize faces, it can, where am I now? Interpret maps and charts and understand relationships between objects in space. So in other words, they're able to have this capacity to spatially recognize distances between objects. That's a very interesting scenario right there. Okay, right? And then also it deals with intuition and emotions, helping in processing and interpreting non-verbal cues, including facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language. So the right side of the brain is very good at that. So the idea of intuition or hunches comes from the right side of the brain. Okay, it also plays a role, interesting, huh? It also plays a role in emotional processing, including empathy, intuition, holistic processing of information in a holistic and global manner, such as recognizing patterns and making connections between seemingly unrelated pieces of information, and also controls the left side of the body, including movement and sensation. So it's an amazing part of the brain, and that's why, how are these things known? They were known because over the decades of medical study, a lot of events would occur and doctors would take advantage. But of course, I won't deny the fact that some of this information actually comes from some shocking sources. So those of you who don't know the history, they were what were known as the doctors of death, specifically Joseph Mengele. And Joseph Mengele was a big name in Nazi Germany. And Joseph Mengele, as well as the Japanese, I don't know who headed that, but the Japanese and the Germans carried out some of the most inhuman, horrible experiments on human beings. But they were very meticulous in taking down details. So they wanted to know how long can a human survive if they are put in an oven and cooked to death. I'm not kidding. I am so not kidding, guys. How long would people survive if they put in ice? And what happens if we cut out the eye and cut out the ear and poke the head? And so they would carry out these grotesque experiments, like tons of them, and they would observe and take notes. And so you will not believe this, ladies and gentlemen, but a lot of our knowledge about the brain, for instance, comes from the notes of these horrendous doctors, especially Joseph Mengele. And Joseph Mengele and his group carried those experiments on, obviously, Nazi Jews mainly. Sorry, the Jews in that part of the world. But pretty much anybody that was a dissident to the state, but mainly the Jews. And then the Japanese did that to the Chinese. The Japanese did some of the most horrible things you can imagine towards the Chinese during those days. So those of you who followed the famous raping of Nanjing, the famous attack that the Japanese carried out against what is now Beijing, it used to be called Nanjing then, or was it Peking? I can't remember. But they did a horrible campaign for a long time. They stayed and really massacred so many people. And then they went on to do experiments with the Chinese for years on end. And so that became a very serious issue that was carried on, and they got this data, which we can now study. So, away from the horrors of that type of experiment, again, even though left hemisphere tends to be more dominant in language and analytical thinking, the right hemisphere plays an important role in cognition, creativity, and emotional processing. As mentioned before, the two hemispheres work together in complex ways to enable us to perceive and interact with the world around us. Give me 1 second. Hello? So as can be seen, the intelligence is biased towards the dominant hemisphere, and which one has greater dominance. It is on this basis that we now examine the 8 intelligences. So I'm going to go through them real quick and just quickly help you understand. So we've got 8 types of intelligence. So where did this come from? A development psychologist named Howard Gardner. So this Howard Gardner, proposed a theory of multiple intelligences in which he posited that there are 8 different types of intelligences and individuals which individuals possess to varying degrees, and each type of intelligence is independent of the other. And these intelligences are what determine to what extent an individual would flourish in any given discipline and how much they excel. So there are more, but this Gardner model is the most preferred one. It's the one that most experts out there in my space tend to run with. So I am now going to name them, and hopefully you'll be able to understand. And I want, just before I get into these 8 intelligences, I want you to realize that some people were forced to pursue certain type of subjects and fields because of their environment, but it's not really where their true genius is seen. Let me tell you this, my friends. The people that we see become excellent in a particular field are actually operating in their naturally endowed space. So these intelligences, if one is able to recognize what comes to them naturally and then pursue it, they tend to excel. So what happens with a lot of people is that they find themselves pursuing a field, but they don't have the natural inclination and tendency for it. In short, they are not gifted in it. Now, some people are very good at excelling in anything that they pick. I agree, but they will never be excellent in it. The challenge with most human beings, I'll be very honest with you, is that most people just don't even try. Most people just kind of, go along. Chikulu kwacha, as long as I get my money, I don't care. That's what most people, that's the level most people operate at. That's why they can't excel. And then there are those who are gifted, yes, but they don't choose to put themselves in it. So we'll get to that. But the majority, I can tell you for a fact, the majority are misplaced. And so because they are misplaced, no matter how hard they try, they will never excel. I just wish that we had a way in countries like ours where we could harness talent early. The Chinese and Russians and Japanese and Europeans and Americans, what they've done is they've put in place systems within their education that look out for natural abilities quickly and then harness them. Simon Biles didn't become one of, if not the greatest acrobat of our current time by accident. No, when you go back, you discover that she was spotted as being talented early and then pushed into that space. What's his name? Usain Bolt was spotted early. Jamaica has a very, very powerful team of athletic personnel. They excel immensely. Jamaica does extremely well. Why? Because they have a policy and system in place that harnesses the talent early. Okay, Zambia, we pray that we can continue in this line of football, that we can see more academies open that can go and pick up kids from the compounds and really push, because Zambia seems to have a knack for football, but I'll bet we have our challenges, but Zambia has been historically a very powerful footballing nation, and now we're starting again to see the likes of Muzala. But what saddens me is that in our country it is more accidental than it is deliberate. So we need to understand that these are things that must be set. We must put in place systems to start harnessing the talent early, recognizing who is gifted in what early enough, and then pushing them in that direction, instead of everybody has to go through the normal school system and try and excel and pass number one. And I think it's very unfair to push kids to passing number one when they're not even gifted in that area. So let's find a way in which natural talent can be harnessed. So listen to the 8 intelligences now as I run them through, and then you will see for yourself. You realize that certain people are gifted in certain areas. And I know, for example, for myself, I'll tell you which areas where I know I have natural intelligence. So the first one is verbal linguistic intelligence. Now, this type of intelligence is associated with language, including the ability to use words effectively in speaking and writing. And these are typically skilled at writing, public speaking, reading, storytelling, learning languages, journalism, poetry, and teaching. Me, Rev Walter, I fall in this space. So I have verbal linguistic intelligence. So when I do things related to verbal linguistic, I excel. I'm extremely good at writing. I am a fairly proficient public speaker. I can read very well, and not just read, I love to read. I can tell very good stories. I'm not very good at learning languages, but I don't struggle much. I can do 4 languages right now on this call. So let me see if I can do that fairly well. So pavame nichita, I'm speaking Nyanja, so this is not Chewa. So nichita hivi chifukwa nina mphasa. Is it mphasa? Mphaso? I've forgotten. Yo lalikira, yo kamba. So vame nichita pano, bwatuka, ndiye mphasa yanga. Alright? Mimi na uwezo wa kuongea vizuri, naongea hivi lugha kwa sababu nina uwezo wake. Lakini kikubwa uwezo wangu unatokea wapi? Unatokea katika uwezo wa kuongea. Yani wazungu wanaita verbal linguistic. Moi, Rev Walter, mon basis, parler petit français, je expliquais my words. My French sucks. Anyway, the point is, I've always found it easy. If I go somewhere, I can pick languages. I don't do it too well, but I try. You know, what does it try? So the point is, I am good at speaking, and so this is where my gift lies. And so when I exploit this, I will excel. And that's the secret to really excelling in any field. Identify your gifting, where you flow easily, where it comes naturally, and then expend energy there. And most importantly, find a way to monetize. 2, logical mathematical intelligence. Now, this type of intelligence is associated with reasoning and problem solving, including the ability to think logically and use mathematical concepts. Now, these are skilled in complex problem solving, which includes logic and reasoning, math, science, programming, critical thinking, data analysis, research, and engineering. Now, I'm not very proficient in this space, but I do operate a bit there. So I do have some aspects here where I'm pretty cool. Complex problem solving, reasoning and logic, I'm strong there. Science, I have a love for science. Critical thinking, I'm big on that. Research, I'm big on that. So 4 of these 8, I have some proficiency in. And so again, you realize, okay, so I have a bit of that, and that's why I find subjects of science and reasoning very intriguing. And that's why I am open to people when they come on my page and throw all their spew, all their venom there. I'm able to kind of tolerate that and engage them because I have a bit of a logical mathematical intelligence within myself. I don't mind. I'm not freaked by knowledge. I don't fear knowledge. I embrace it. I love it. Number 3. Visual spatial intelligence. Now, this is an interesting one. Okay, this type of intelligence is associated with visual and spatial perception, including the ability to visualize and manipulate objects in the mind's eye. Okay, these are skilled in visual arts, architecture, interior design, navigation, photography, fashion design, sculpture, and landscaping. No gift whatsoever in that space for me. So my drawings are pathetically horrible. Okay, but then you find other people are very, very good at this. So again, you realize that that's where their intelligence lies. So my question to you, if you're listening to me right now, if this is where your intelligence lies, what are you doing in math? Anyway, let's continue. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence. Now, this type of intelligence is associated with physical movement and coordination, including the ability to control one's body and use tools effectively. These are skilled in sports, dance, acting, martial arts, surgery, fine arts, crafts, and carpentry. Isn't it interesting that surgery falls there? Now, you'd think that surgeons have to master a lot in terms of the mathematical, the other gifts. So you find there's a combo. Logical mathematical intelligence, you find that this area they have to be pretty good at. But you realize that surgeons are just people that are very gifted at using their hands and using them well to do the most minute stuff without any fear. So, for example, the famous meme that's running right now, what's his name? Yusuf Dikech or Mikech, whatever his name is. The Russian guy with the gun thing, also not the Russian, the Turkish guy, the most popular meme right now, iconic image of the Olympics right now is that guy, the Turkish guy with the gun stance, right? That guy is gifted in this space. Have you seen that? But most sports people, okay, most sports people are also gifted in this space. So if you're a sports person, you find that generally are naturally gifted in this area. So people like Mozala and all the football art people we know today, this is their gift. So you notice that with school, we try so much to push them in the intelligence space, But you don't realize that these people also have a gift in this bodily kinesthetic. So what can we do to harness that? Or do we just let it go? Number 5, musical rhythmic. Now, this type of intelligence is associated with musical ability, including the ability to understand and create music. And these are skilled in playing musical instruments, singing, composing music, producing music, conducting music, music theory, music education, and musical performance. I have quite a bit of that as well. A lot of people do not know this, but I'm very musical. And my background, back in the day, I was actually a music producer and music pioneer in this country. We pioneered the hip hop movement in the country back in the late 80s and early 90s with my brother and a bunch of us from that day. So that musical ability has never gone. To this day, I still hear music. If I listen to music, I hear bass lines, I hear drum rolls, I hear stuff that a lot of people will not hear. So why? It's because I appreciate that kind of sound. And so musical rhythmic is a very powerful space. So a lot of our artists who are so gifted, like for example, my cousin Pompey, Pompey or Abel Chungu or many of our Zambian musicians, you find that this is something they're just gifted in. They just do it naturally. It's not something you learn. Either you have it or you don't have it. And then there are those I call musical geniuses. In our Zambian setup, we had guys like Keith Mlevu, who could play all the instruments and produce all the music by himself. In the world stage, you've got people like Prince, the late Prince Nelson, very well-known artist. He could do all the music by himself. Stevie Wonder is another good example who could play all the instruments by himself, every single instrument. A lot of the albums that Stevie Wonder produced were totally, fully done by himself. That's how gifted. And then he had the powerful voice. Of course, you got the famous people like Michael Jackson. He didn't play instruments, but he could play everything in his head. And so many of the songs that he used to create, he would actually do all the music sequences by mouth. So he'd play the drums, he'd play the bass line, he'd play the guitar, he'd play everything off his head, the different things, the tone, the harmonies. He was very, very good. He couldn't play any instrument, but he could reproduce the sound from his head. And so you realize that those are musical rhythmic. Then number 6, interpersonal intelligence. This is also known as existential intelligence. I have some of this as well. Now, so you'll notice that as you go, when I'm naming these gifts, you'll notice that you've got some of them. So, but in varying degrees. So meaning potentially you could develop that area and really go on to excel in it if you allowed yourself to do so. So it's a very interesting scenario. But anyway, on interpersonal or existential intelligence, what's that exactly? This type of intelligence is associated with social interaction and communication, including the ability to understand and respond to others' emotions and motivations, and the most pressing questions everyone asks: why? So a lot of people who have existential intelligence become philosophers. They become influencers that influence community through their words and thinking. This is different from being a good writer, for example. So I've got that verbal linguistic skill, yes, but existential intelligence is the ability to connect with people and connect naturally and easily. There are certain people who we say are just likable. The truth is they carry this intelligence in high degrees. So a lot of politicians, for example, are in this space. A lot of pastors and people that work in places where they have to interact with the public on a regular basis have a very high level of this intelligence. Now, some of them could be nurses, doctors, but you find that people like them. People want to be around that person. Why? Because they carry high levels of existential intelligence. I'll give you 2 very good examples of people with existential intelligence outside of myself. So the first one I can think of right now is my good friend, Dr. Aaron Mjajati. Dr. Mjajati is a doctor. Okay, so obviously he carries massive intelligence in that space. And I think if you recall, what intelligence is that? Logical mathematical. So obviously he's extremely gifted in that area. All right, and that's why he does what he does. But what you realize, what makes Dr. Mjajati so likable? From the moment that he opened his page and began to run, the man has gone into the hundreds of thousands in terms of influence. What makes Mjajati so special? There are so many other doctors around. What makes him stand out? It's this ability here. Okay, this existential intelligence, the ability to have good social interaction. Many politicians. Second example I'll give is President Chiluba. President Chiluba, the late Frederick Chiluba, he definitely had it in droves because Chiluba could go anywhere. The moment that man begins to speak, you connect. And a lot of people who interacted with him, he's not the only one, but I'm just saying, a lot of people who interacted with him immediately picked up that thing about him. He had this thing about him that just made him such a charismatic person. You just wanted to interact with him, and he had a way of connecting with the common people. Michael Sata, he had a way of connecting with the common people. I'll give you two differences. Levi Mwanawasa didn't have it. He was a great leader in every way, but he did not have existential intelligence. He didn't know how to connect. And unfortunately, in his time as president, he was one of the most bitterly hated presidents. He didn't enjoy his presidency, if you like. He came on a very unpopular spot and spent all his life being criticized. But when that man died, everybody then recognized what he had done. But that's the example. So he didn't have existential intelligence, whereas Chiluba did. Okay, so there's your difference. So my friend, Dr. Mjajati is an example, but I can give you a good number of people who carry that ability where they just have this ability to influence people with their thinking in such a profound way. I carry a bit of that as well, existential intelligence. So I am able, remember, where I sit today, I don't run a church. I haven't run a church for 17 years. 17 years. What level of influence do I have in the Christian community in this country when it comes to the marketplace? Not in the community, because I'm not there. I'm not in any association. I'm not part of any pastor's network. I am not part of any active ministry. A lot of people think I am, but I'm not. I've been out there for many, many years for obvious reasons. I've explained them before. But what level of influence do I have right now as a voice? The reason I have that is because I carry existential intelligence. I am very good when it comes to connecting with people. It is natural. Throw me in the middle of the market with marketeers, I will connect. Put me in a room full of mechanics from the companies, I will connect. Get me into Bauleni, I will connect. And not just connect, people will really connect with me. So I've interacted, I've seen myself in those setups, and I realize, you know what? It's just something special that I have. It's not something that I have to fight to do. It comes to me naturally. I connect with people easily. So that's called interpersonal or existential intelligence. And last but not least, intrapersonal intelligence. Now, this type of intelligence is associated with self-awareness and self-understanding, including the ability to reflect on one's own thoughts and emotions, and most importantly, to manage those, to manage them well. Because a lot of people with intrapersonal intelligence are able to manage their emotions in a very powerful way. So think of emergency workers, okay, like firemen, policemen, soldiers, emergency workers at hospitals. Those are able to see traumatizing things and still think and go ahead and control their emotions and decide when to do what to do without being affected by emotions. That's intrapersonal intelligence, the ability to control yourself completely in such a manner that you're not impulsive. Powerful skill. Then last but not least, naturalistic intelligence. And this type of intelligence is associated with the understanding of the natural world, including the ability to observe and classify patterns of nature. Naturalists are like this. So these are people that love working with animals, with the wildlife, farming. They are deep into connecting with the environment. So farmers carry this powerfully. And some of them are just gifted. My grandmother had green fingers. My mother inherited green fingers as well. Whatever my mother plants grows. So these abilities are not just, you don't just get them. Either you have them or you don't have them. So Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences has been influential in education and has led to a more diverse approach to teaching and learning that recognizes and accommodates different types of intelligence. However, some researchers have criticized Gardner's theory for lacking empirical evidence and for being too broad and vague. But you know what? Either way, whatever I've explained today, I think for me, Gardner's levels really help us to understand. But you'll notice that it will be in various places. And this brings me to the end of our session today. Join Aunt Sylvia tomorrow when she's here with another riveting episode of her program, the Mindset Change Program. You've got to be part of that if you're not yet. Those of you interested in becoming part of what we're doing as Rev Walter and the mentorship platform, you know where to get me. So on that note, thank you guys. Have a great day, and we catch you tomorrow. Take care.